Welcome, everybody. This is the Christian Church in the Southwest, and we are using our conversation today for talking about commission minister expectations. They have been recently revised, and so Christy Drechsel, who is the regional executive and on whose desk is the standing requirement, is here with us as well as myself. So we are grateful for you. As we said earlier in the conversation, we'll take this one section at a time. And if you have questions, we're going to ask you to, we'll pause and wait for those questions in between each section. So with that, I'm going to start our share screen and look at the presentation that we have put together. So commission minister expectations have been with us since the beginning of the region's responsibility over commission minister expectations, and so the commission ministry is a form of standing and a recognition by the whole church of a person's gifts and calls for ministry, and it is most appropriate for people who are discerning a call to ministry. So what we would call an initial commission to ministry. We would also use this for people who are non-disciples serving disciples congregations. Commission ministry was developed for those seeking ordination, and it is appropriate still for those who are working toward either MDiv track or apprentice track ordination. And then finally, a new category that we've developed in this process, and it's been something that has been related to the ways other areas have worked with commissioned ministers of the past, but we've developed a new statement of career commissioned ministers for those who've discerned that their call to ministry really is going to live out best as a commissioned minister. So with that, my colleague Christy Drechsel, the regional executive minister and the person who carries the portfolio for standing, will talk about the first section.
Hello, everyone. I hope that this day is greeting you well. I am that person that sends you all of those emails asking for paperwork and checking in on you. And hopefully I am also that person that's helpful when you get stuck or get frustrated. And so if this is the first time you're seeing my face, know that I know each and every one of you through paper, and hopefully a lot of you also in person. So new commissioning, the language that we're using here is discerning. Not many changes here, but we want to go over it just because there are a few changes, but also because this tool, once we're completed here today and it's added to our website, will be helpful for those of you who are helping people discern, whether in your church or colleagues that are discerning whether they would like to seek standing as a commissioned minister. You'll be able to show them this video, direct them to this video so that they can get some help in that way. So for initial commissioning, new commissioning, you do have to have a congregation, a position in ministry, and it has to be supported by a disciples related ministry or disciples congregation. And then here's a little difference of what this new document is bringing us. So in the past, you were all sponsored by a disciples congregation. Even if you were, say, working at a campground, a disciples campground, or a disciples related ministry, with this new expectations, that disciples related ministry can sponsor your commissioning if you are new and also continuing. So let me give you an example of that. Say you are a minister serving Texas Christian University. In the past, you would have a congregation that would sponsor your ministry through that congregation to work at TCU. This new way is that TCU would be able to directly sponsor your ministry. So if, like I said, a campground, if you're a commissioned minister working for one of our campgrounds, that board would be able to vote and sponsor your commissioning. For those commissioned ministers who are working in non-disciples context, so we have several that do prison ministry, hospice, nonprofits, because those non-disciples contexts are not related to us, or not ministry partners, that sponsorship will still have to come from the congregation. So a local congregation that you are connected to would sponsor your commissioning to do the hospice work, or whatever it is. And it's important to remember that these positions, there's no requirement of whether you are paid or unpaid staff. Whether you're working for the congregation or for a partner ministry or for a non-disciples context, that whether you're compensated or not is not related to the position. So the documentation, you'll hear this several times throughout this training here. So there's an application process. So you will fill out paperwork. All paperwork is done now and expected to continue to be done online. You can find all of the paperwork at ccsw.org/clergy. Once you get there, there's a kind of a landing page that is information about all clergy that have standing with us and requirements. And then you can choose then commission minister, and it'll drop you down to the application there. So then you have an application. There's an online form for the congregation or the disciples related ministry to fill out to sponsor your commissioning. All new commissions will be background checked. A few years ago, our regional committee on ministry, RCOM, made the decision to have all clergy background checked, and we do that in conjunction with your healthy boundaries that's required of you. And so you are background checked. Everyone, all of us, are background checked every 5 years. But for those new initial commissioning, you will be background checked at the time of your commissioning. And so there's a form there for you to fill out. And then a new piece of that will be a regional ministry staff introductory memo. So if you are new to commissioning, you would reach out to the person on regional staff who most closely serves your geography in the region. You'll have a conversation with that staff person, ministerial staff person. It's just kind of a get to know you, and then they will fill out a form. This is a process that had been done in the ordination process, and we found it helpful there. And so RCOM has decided to go ahead and move that over for new commissioning as well. It's a point of contact, a way to establish relationships with regional staff, and just to help get everybody connected to people around them. You will have a CCOM interview. That's the Commissioning Committee on Ministry. Those interviews, you will find those interviews on that same website that I just gave you, ccsw.org/clergy. When you scroll down, one of the options there will be for you to sign up for an interview. I'll say this now, and you'll probably hear it a couple more times. The other way that you can be made aware of CCOM interviews at any event that the region does is through Eventbrite. That's how you will sign up. You'll purchase a ticket. It's free, but you'll purchase an interview time. And it's through Eventbrite. I will tell you now that if you go to our Eventbrite page, you can follow our Eventbrite page just like you follow anything on social media or whatever. And if you do that, you actually, as soon as we upload an event, so whether it's a training or a retreat or anything that we upload through Eventbrite for registration, including CCOM interviews, you immediately get an email from Eventbrite that lets you know that an event has been added to a group that you follow. And I will tell you, as trainings become a little bit more or in higher demand, I'll use the pro-reconciliation, anti-racism trainings that we are trying to get everybody in and through. We would have, before we in our office could get it uploaded to our website, Eventbrite would have already sent out the email, and we would already had registrations for that event before we even got it on our own website, just because it happens that quickly. And so if you're anxious about when you might be able to register, or if you get the time that you need, I always encourage, go to Eventbrite. Andy's been dropping links in the chat. Go to Eventbrite and follow us. That way you can get to know those. Trainings that are required for those new commissioning is going to be the same trainings that you're going to hear over and over again. Boundaries training is required every 5 years. Pro-reconciliation, anti-racism training is required every 3 years to maintain your standing. And then you begin your foundational ministry education. And so there are 16 areas of competency that all clergy in the denomination are required to be proficient at. And so there are multiple places that you can start to take those classes to be able to meet those. The CCSW Learn that you see there are the classes that the region offers. There are other approved tracks in the appendix of the Commission Minister Expectations document that some of our seminaries offer tracks. Our Hispanic pastors, there's a education summer institute that meets those same requirements, and so you'll start to work on that. Once all of that paperwork is in, I read all of that and make sure that everything is good, and then certify that you have standing. Questions? So I think that information is going to be most helpful for those of you who might have an associate come onto staff, or you're just working with colleagues that are discerning how to get standing in the disciples. But I think the key changes there, just to remember that there is a new form to fill out for the regional staff person will fill it out, but there is a conversation that has to be had with the regional staff person. And then also just to remember that if a disciples related ministry can now sponsor commissioning.
Excuse me, Christy, that will include whatever date deadline is applicable to the paperwork and et cetera.
Yeah, so for new commissioning, all of that's going to be, on there's no set deadline for the new commissioning, right? It's when somebody has discerned that they want to get standing, so they would turn all of that in, and then sign up for the new, the quickest CCOM interview that they can get, because they wouldn't be able to be commissioned until they've had that interview. So that deadline for that new one, there's no real deadline. It's just as those ministers come forward and seek standing. The other ones, we will talk about the deadline for those.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat saying, where's the list of classes I will need to take? I was trying to figure out how to insert a document into the chat. I'm not remembering exactly how to do that, but if in the Commission Minister Expectations document, you'll see, so Appendix C will give you the breakdown of the 20 classes that we have organized for the CCSW Learn pathway. Any other pathway that you take toward foundational education experience will need to come to me to address all 16 competencies, and the 16 competencies are also in that document. But different programs like the Phillips program or the programs from Lexington will cover those, but they'll do it in a little different format. And so the main thing is to be familiar with the 16 competencies and whatever pathway you choose to make sure that they're built around those. So hope that answers your question. Like I said, I've trying to we've put a link in the chat to a Dropbox folder where you can see the documents that we're talking about. And I think the easiest to read will be the Commission Minister handout, but you may want to look at the expectations document, because a lot of the information people ask about are in the appendices. Sorry, Christy.
I'm sorry.
Talk now about renewal.
Yeah. So renewal is probably going to be, just the next step for the new commissioning, but everyone will need to renew every year. So again, it's you have a position, you have met with the Commission and Committee on Ministry, the CCOM interview, and for this one, it's an annual meeting, right? So we have in the past, and I will say to you all now, if you're wondering where the CCOM signups are, if you've already gone to look, we have not put those out simply because we wanted to get this document and new expectations sent out to everyone and have this conversation. And so you will start to see in the next coming weeks and month a list of multiple opportunities to sign up for those CCOM interviews on the website. And I've found that like I said, if you go and follow our page, you will get information faster. And also, if you're not subscribed to our communications that come out of our office, you can choose how you want to receive those. So do not think that you're signing on to getting them every day, but you can choose how much of that you want to how often you want to receive those. But these links are generally, for these classes, are generally in that communication that comes out of our office. There's multiple ways that you can get it. So you will, the documentation, when you go to that ccsw.org/clergy, you will find a renewal, not the initial or new. You will find a renewal form. You have to fill out that renewal form every year. Your congregation has to fill out, or ministry, disciples ministry has to fill out that form for you every year. The confusion when we made this shift from Area Committee on Ministry to the Commission and Committee on Ministry was that most times the areas would require that paperwork at the time of your interview. And you can still, if you were to interview, say you got one of the first ones there in September and you wanted to go ahead and fill out the paperwork then, you could fill out the paperwork now, right? You can fill it anytime, but it is due November 1st, because that gives us the time, the time to go through and read those forms and make sure that you have all of the pieces that you need. And so you can fill out that form at any point. As soon as it's uploaded, it is uploaded now. You may fill it out at any point, but just know, if you are one that that wants to procrastinate and get it in at the last minute, which I reflect that as well. So don't, I'm not pointing out your flaw. I'm also pointing out my flaw, that November 1st is your deadline for paperwork, and the congregational support form as well. And again, the trainings have to be there. So every 5 years for boundaries, every 3 years for the anti-racism course, and then be continuing to work on your educational documentation. I will tell you that if you are taking CCSW Learn, our office, and when I mean our office, I mean those of us here in Fort Worth, and also Anna, who is down in San Antonio, loads that into your record, and so we keep record of that. If you take the Hispanic Summer Institute courses, Pastor Yolanda is really great about letting us know those, and so we put them in there. But I will tell you that the documentation, if you're taking, say, what Phillips offers, or another one of the approved courses, there's not a direct line of communication back and forth as far as making sure that gets into your record. And so when you fill out your form, your renewal form, there's an option to upload documents. And so you will want to make sure that you obviously will type in, I took this course, or, it asks the continuing education question. There's also an opportunity to upload your documents. And if you do that, we will then make sure that it gets put into your record so that we have record of the courses that you're taking. So if once you upload it once, you're not going to have to prove over and over again that you've done it, right? Because we will get it loaded into our database for each minister. But again, that proof is going to need to come either in the form of a transcript or a certificate or whatever it is that they're offering you to prove that you've taken the course. So there's a way to upload that in the online form, and so that's a piece that I just want to highlight, because we want everybody to take the courses in the approved way, the approved courses that work with your schedule. But if it's not one that we are hosting, either through the CCSW Learn or through the Summer Institute, then you're going to need to help us in the proof of that. But it's on the form and you can do.
Christy?
Yeah.
So the classes that, like Andy hosts and the CCSW classes, so y'all do keep track of those?
Yeah, let me just clarify that since we keep track of all of the courses that you have taken since CCSW Learn was implemented, right? So if you took a course through your area, we may or may not have record of that. Some areas kept records and shared those with us when we transitioned into one region.
Right.
In the one region model, not all of them did. I will tell you that if you let me know if you really feel like you took a course and we don't show record of that. Like I work with you, right? I'm not going to tell you that you have to retake a course just because I don't have proof of it.
Right.
I believe that we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing and doing it faithfully and not trying to scoot out of requirements. And so, but yes, we do have record of all of the CCSW Learn. Anna has done her due diligence and made sure, and including the Healthy Boundaries and the Anti-Racism, any of those courses that the region has sponsored, then we do have record of that in your database, your ministerial record.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Other questions that you might have at this time about renewal? We're going to talk a little bit more about non-disciples serving disciples churches, and then introduce the career commission, or those who are seeking ordination, and then career commission ministers later. But if you've got just questions about renewal and how renewal is done, let us know.
Yeah, Andy, I've got one. This is Julian Grant.
Go ahead.
What's the interview process for this year?
Yeah, so we'll roll those out after this session I'm getting with all my CCOM chairs, and we'll roll that out. They'll be offered online as they have in the past. Some of the CCOMs are wanting to meet in person and offer in-person opportunities. So yeah, thanks Julian for that. Let me say this part about interviews. In the past, for those of you who have been commissioned for many years, you are used to interviewing with your ACOM, your area committee on ministry that was closest to you. One of the things that shifted when the region started to oversee commission ministry in this way is that you can interview with any committee on ministry or CCOM that works with your schedule. And if you are in Houston, and there's one offered in Houston locally, and you want to do that in person, then you would sign up for that. But if your schedule doesn't work, or you would just prefer, because you're bivocational, it's easier for you to do that sitting at your desk at the office, then you would sign up for an online option. And those interviews are really to be a point of contact and to be supportive and to find out the ways in which we as the region might be able to support you better, or ways in which we might be able to connect you to some local people, or even non-local, like if you're in youth ministry, connecting you to somebody who is in youth ministry on the other side of the region, just to make those connections. And so yeah, they'll be offered in person and online, and when you see the CCOM, it will tell you in the description whether it's in person and where in person if it is, and whether it's online. And then you would just get the Zoom link and log in at your time. Did that answer the question, Julian?
When you say look at the CCOM, and what's the process for signing up?
Yeah, so that if you go to ccsw.org/clergy, we do those through Eventbrite. And so the links will be there to register for those. They're not up right now because we have not set any up because we want to get this rolled out. But that's where you would go is to the website and choose your CCOM time and date that works for you.
And you'll let us know when that's set up, perhaps.
Yeah, you'll get an email from me that says that. But again, I'll say, I'm gonna be a broken record. If you follow our Eventbrite page, you'll get that information before I even send out the email to you to tell you to sign up. So just because I'm a human being and it's a computer and it can do a lot faster than I can.
Good morning. My question was, it was regarding I was looking at the annual education and the schools that were listed, and I didn't see like Jarvis out there as one of those schools. If a person takes theological studies from there, do they meet the requirement, or
Sure.
would they have to come back and take those 4 CCSW learn courses still? And I ask it is because the TCMF supports
Right.
Jarvis with the scholarship that they give to some of the students that are graduating in the churches.
Yeah. The Jarvis has several different elements to that. One, an undergraduate degree in ministry we need to work with separately. Anything that's graduate level is from any accredited school like Jarvis it qualifies. And then the Emmett J. Dixon program, I don't know that they're offering that certificate anymore. If they do, we absolutely would encourage that. But yes, Jarvis, absolutely. We've just not, they're included in any school that's offering graduate level theological education.
Okay.
That work.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Good deal. So let's move on. And if you've got other questions, we'll continue to add. Debbie, do you have another question, or you just still have your hand up? All right.
So sorry.
Go ahead, Debbie.
No, I said, so sorry, I didn't see my hand up still.
It's all right. It's all right. Good deal. So to say a little bit about standing versus commissioning and ordination. Commissioning and ordination is required for you to have standing as a minister, but this is my language. It's not the official language of the region nor of the denomination. But your commission and your ordination is a sacred act of the church to acknowledge your call to ministry and the church's confirmation of your call. Standing is your professional credential to act as a minister within the Christian church and to have the region certify that to the best of our knowledge, you are safe and qualified to do ministry in the Christian church in the Southwest. So that's what we mean by standing. So when we start talking about non-disciples serving disciples churches, most often this is in the form of people who have been ordained by another tradition and who are serving. A lot of times it's temporarily in one of our disciples' churches. They may have been called to be an interim, or that may, through a relationship with a particular local church or ministry, be called into that space. And so what those ministers are doing oftentimes is saying to us as a denomination, we are not disciple, but we're going to play by your rules as long as we're serving in your context. Really great thing for us to hear. And so the most often way that we certify that is through standing. We'll also tell you that as we talk with search committees, that's one of the things we encourage is that as they call people to serve in their churches, we encourage them to make as part of the letter of call that the minister either have standing or seek standing with the Christian church as a part of assuming that call. So with that in mind, I will start talking a little bit more about the non-disciple serving in disciples churches. So obviously, as it's true for anything in the commission category, the first prerequisite is a position in a disciples ministry or a disciples congregation. With that, initially, we would ask that the application or renewal for application is made. Application is made once whenever the position is taken. The renewal of application or application for renewal of standing is done annually by November 1st. The congregational endorsement, again, as you've heard, is done annually. There is an online form for that. There'll be a criminal background check that will be done initially, and some of our ministers will come from denominations that have been performing regular criminal background checks, and so they may certify it that way. Otherwise, we'll use what we have as a standard initial criminal background check for you, and then thereafter, every time you take boundaries, then you'll have a criminal background check, as is the case with all of our ministers. There will be a regional ministry staff introductory memo that will need to come with that initial set of documentation. And for non-disciples serving disciples congregation, that introductory memo and that introductory conversation will be a little bit more in depth, as we will focus on disciples' ethos and disciples' polity and practice, not so much to convert, but just to say this is who we are, and hopes that we will be able to articulate ourselves in a way that we can come to covenant understanding about what it means to serve a disciples congregation. If that sounds unusually defensive, I will say that we've had some churches steeplejacked by people who come in and who know our polity well enough, they can lead their church out of the denomination. By and large, if a minister is talking to me and wanting to play by our rules, that's not their intent. So, but that's part of what we're wanting to make sure that we understand each other well. In terms of training, our Healthy Boundaries is required once every 5 years. Our anti-reconciliation, our anti-racism, pro-reconciliation training is once every 3 years, or a ministry-related anti-racism training. Sometimes we get people who say because of their work, they're doing anti-racism training at work, or that we feel like it's important that the anti-racism training be rooted in theology, and I have a particular agenda that it be rooted in ministry, so that we understand the power that we have as ministers and the responsibilities we have as ministers, and are exercising that appropriately. In terms of continuing education, again, most of our non-disciples serving disciple congregations for whom this kind of commission is applied have a graduate degree. A lot of times they're ordained. And so if that graduate degree has at least 36 hours of ministry education, that will qualify for that foundational education. And then as we do for everybody, we expect 12 hours of professional continuing education, minus the boundaries and PRAR. So those don't count toward that. But we expect that sort of continuing education in the form of conferences and involvement in your constituency group or whatever. And then just a reminder that that you have standing when Reverend Christy Drechsel says you have standing. So it is certified by the regional executive. We'll stop there and see if we have questions about non-disciples serving disciples congregation. All right, well, we'll keep moving then.
This one will be a lot of repeat information, so I'm probably just gonna highlight the two things that would be different between a person seeking standing as a commission minister who is not on a path towards ordination and those who are. So this would be for current seminary students and for those who are on the apprentice track. So people who we have commission ministers who who are commissioned while they are also seeking ordination, so that they have standing as they move through the ministry that they're doing. And prior to this, these new expectations, those processes overlapped, and we didn't really give credit for the overlap that it has. So so the position is going to be the same. You're going to have a position. There is documentation that is required of you, just like it is for any time. So If that regional ministry staff introductory memo, again, remember, is just for that initial, and then after that, you would fill out the renewal form. So the CCOM interview, so you will have the piece here is that your interview with the Regional Committee on Ministry for your ordination track will stand in place of an interview with a CCOM. So that if you have to still interview with RCOM within that calendar year, right? So if you for some reason are on a longer path, either through the apprentice track or through seminary, and you're not interviewing at least once a year with RCOM, then you will have to interview with a CCOM. But if you are interviewing once a year throughout your process with RCOM, then your RCOM interview will stand in place of that CCOM interview. So that's a different new expectation requirement there of the way in which your interview can be met through an RCOM interview as opposed to a CCOM interview. The one little kind of caveat that I would put to that is that you have to interview, you have to have an interview, like we said, for any commissioning. So for those of you, for those who would fit into this category as, let's say, a new CCOM is the Commissioning Committee on Ministry. If I were new to the region, had just started seminary at Bright and had started serving a congregation and wanted to have standing, say that all happened in August, because that's when I started seminary. And so I started seminary in August, wanted to be commissioned. By the time I started in August, I would have already missed the deadline to turn in paperwork for the September RCOM session. So my next available RCOM session, the first time that I would be able to interview with RCOM would be in January, because RCOM only meets 3 times a year: January, April, and September. And so if I were to wait for my RCOM interview to meet my interview requirement, then I would not be able to be commissioned from August until January. So I would probably choose to go ahead and sign up for a CCOM interview so that I could go ahead and meet that part of the requirement to gain standing. So while it does, the RCOM interview does meet that interview requirement for commissioning, there may be times in which you want to go ahead and interview with a CCOM, or again, if for some reason you are not meeting with RCOM in that calendar year, you're going to want to go ahead and meet with CCOM so that your commissioning can be continued. Excuse me. The other piece would be the training, where this would be maybe a little bit nuanced, a little bit different. Everyone who has standing is required to take a boundaries course and a PRAR course. If you are in seminary, your educational requirement for commissioning is met by the courses that you're taking in seminary, as long as you're taking at least 6 hours in your seminary process for that that semester or whatever as it goes throughout the year. And if you're on the apprentice track, those courses, your approved educational path for your apprentice track, those courses, provided that you are taking that kind of minimum number of 6 hours, would also meet your educational. So you could still sign up for a CCSW Learn or any other course, but that would just be because you want to take the course, and your educational requirements are probably already being met by the ordination path that you're on. And then again, once all of that is in, the regional executive approves that, checks the box, and you have standing.
And what the PowerPoint doesn't show, I put that together so I can critique it, is that if you're on the apprentice track, it may not be graduate hours that you're working toward, but whatever is equivalent to at least 1/8 of your apprentice track plan is necessary. So we're getting close to the hour mark, and so I do want to try to get through all of the primary content within the hour, and then we can answer some more questions after that. But want to move on to career commissioned and how to qualify. So 2 things that we heard pretty definitively especially from some of our constituency partners, is that there needs to be an end point or at least a plateau where longevity is acknowledged, as well as that education is outside of that what felt like a loop of either CCSW Learn or one of the certifying programs. And so we have worked with ARCOM to develop the career commissioned minister status. It is after 5 consecutive years in 1 or 2 disciple ministry positions. Then it will require a completed foundational ministry education portfolio, whatever that looks like, whether that is a 36-hour or plus graduate degree that includes that much ministry training, or a certificate from one of the certificates in ministry programs that we've listed in Appendix A, or CCSW Learn, the 20 classes that we require for the completion of our path, whatever that is. And it may be a mixture of those things, but if keep in mind that the goal is to make sure that all 16 areas of competency are met. At that point, then it will come. There will be what we call a capstone interview with CCOM. It'll be scheduled for a longer period of time. So most of those CCOM interviews last about 15 to 20 minutes. This one would probably last closer to an hour, in which the minister would talk about their theology of ministry, disciples' identity and their covenant relationship to the ministry, their record of service in ministry, and their education for ministry. So what they have learned and what they have taught. And then again, that has to be certified by the regional executive. So I want to be clear that this is we think an important step in what we're doing, but I don't want people here to hear 5 years and say that's all that it takes. It takes a few other things. Once that foundational education is done, that's our commitment to making sure that we're fulfilling what the Theological Foundation's Policies and Criteria of Ordering of Ministry document, which is a general church document, requires of us to meet all 16 of those competencies. Once a minister has done that, we really do want to encourage people to do other forms of learning to meet their annual requirements. That can be in the form of CPE, which is clinical pastoral education. It's offered by chaplaincy offices at hospitals. And what many people don't realize is that many programs, CPE programs, will take people who do not have seminary background, that lay people can enroll in some of those. It just never hurts to ask. And so that's a wonderful form of education that could be beyond that foundational experience. There is a ministry called the Church Network, TCN, that offers a certification in church administration, another program that we absolutely want to encourage people to be a part of, and different forms of learning that would be appropriate. So we encourage people to do that. But for career commissioned ministry, making sure that all 16 of those competencies have been addressed in some form of learning, of completion of a program, 5 years at least of consecutive ministry, and then that final CCOM interview. And then after that, you meet with CCOM every 5 years and you get on the rotation with your boundaries training. So we remember when those need to happen, and you'll turn in training that you're just doing and let us know what you're doing. So we're not tracking nearly as tightly as we do for some others. So that is the career commissioned track, and so we've put in the Dropbox some additional explanation, a handout that tries to cover those 5 areas. But what additional questions have developed as we've talked about these different forms of?
Hey, Andy, let me just say one more. Peggy helped bring it up. We should have covered that there is still a retired There is a retired commission minister standing. We didn't put this in there, but I just want to give it to you real quickly. There is, I can drop the document in the Dropbox so that you have it there. I'll do it instead of putting it in the link, but you can get retired standing. There's a form that you have to fill out, and I'm blanking right now on the age, but there's an age that you have to have met, essentially kind of a retirement age. And then the person who represents your geography in the region on the Regional Committee on Ministry will present you. You fill out the form. You're presented to ARCOM. ARCOM grants that standing of you, and then you fall into the retired commission minister standing section. So let me just broad overview very quickly. There are two ways that you can retire. You can be retired active, and you can be retired inactive. And the ways in which we define the difference between those two is active as if you are actively serving a congregation or doing pulpit supply or providing pastoral care, where maybe it's done just on an interim. So you're not really, you would consider yourself retired, but you are still actively serving a congregation. If you're presenting yourself as a minister to a church to perform those duties, then you would be retired active. As retired active, you are still required to maintain your standing with the healthy boundaries and with the PRAR courses. And then everybody's going to fill out a form every year for that. If you are retired inactive would essentially be that you are always a minister, but maybe what you're doing these days is more in line with how our elders serve the church. Like maybe you're teaching a Sunday school class or providing, you're stepping in and serving at the table, or maybe a one-off pulpit supply, but you're not out trying to actively solicit pulpit supply opportunities, right? Something that's the difference of how you're serving. In that case, if you are retired inactive, you do not have to maintain the requirements of healthy boundaries and PRAR. We think it's good that you always take those courses because as much as we like to try and delineate the line between active and inactive, you're always going to be seen as a minister. And so we want to make sure that that you are up to date on healthy boundaries for yourself and for the congregation. And then as always, the pro-reconciliation anti-racism training is something we're always going to need to be continuing to take. So we're going to always encourage you to still take those courses, but just know that if you are retired and active, those courses are not part of the requirement to maintain your standing.
Okay, Christy, I have a question.
Mhm.
On that career commission ministers, where can I find those 5 areas that they were talking about? Where can I find those that they were showing on the screen?
It should be in the document. You have a copy of a handout for this, and it's there, and then it's also in the commission minister expectations. So that Dropbox that Andy has.
I didn't know I got I don't know if I got the documents or not.
Yeah, look in the chat real quick, and you'll see a link to a Dropbox. There, Andy's giving it to you again. Click on that, and in that Dropbox, there are going to be multiple documents that we have referenced today. And I will add in the requirement for the retired ministers simply just because that's going to be helpful to keep there all together. But you will find those requirements for the career commission in that Dropbox.
Well, it's not highlighting. What's the problem? All it does is highlight. I don't understand. It just highlights is all it does.
Okay, Tina, I'll email it to you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Dr. Reed, you have a question?
Good morning, everyone. Yes. How does one make known that they have met the requirements for career commission ministries to have that interview?
A great question. We have not, right now, I would just say email CCOM ccsw.org and let us know that you're ready for that. We have, as Christy's indicated, we've not prepared the CCOM schedule yet. We'll need to schedule those a little bit differently, but absolutely want to get those moving. We don't have a separate form for that yet, so send us an email and we'll get it scheduled.
Give me that email address one more. Oh, there it is. I see it. Thanks. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Other questions that you all have? I'm going to stop recording now if there are some other questions that you might want to ask out of the recording, but those have been helpful. So thank you so much for being on today.